There we go.
Namaste.
Good morning, good afternoon. What is it?
Yes, welcome
Namaste.
to our Tuesday satsang, be it morning or night for those of you who are joining us today. So welcome.
All right.
We see you. Hey.
No, Emmy.
We have more
There
coming.
she is. Good to see you. You're like this big.
Okay, namaste.
I like Joy T. Hi, Ann. And Karen. I know, I like to say hi to Yiki and Dick. Great to see you guys. And there's Meta. Okay. I really, really appreciate people who are in Europe where it's what, 7 or 8 coming on. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to have an interesting topic today. We're going to explore something that is an aspect of our work that I don't give a lot of focus on, but it's an inevitable outcome of the work I do. And the thing for me is that we're going to explore the topic of spiritual power. That means the force of spirit as a tangible expression of truth in existence, but also as a means of tangibly impacting the world in the mental, vital, and physical planes. So who began to language this? Because the thing about spiritual power, it's been kept secret throughout ages and ages. These were the most hidden secrets for fear of people who had it losing their influence, and people who didn't have it, therefore did not have access to what this is. But we're in a new age. We're in a new time. And the first person to really talk about this with a lot of clarity and detail was Sri Aurobindo, where he brought it out of the darkness and made it part of a process of, you could say, scientific discovery, spiritual science. Now, of course, yoga has been doing this for centuries. It's been part of the tradition of the yoga, not only in some traditions more towards the power and others more towards the presence or awareness, but they're both speaking of something of the same capacity of us as embodied souls that is otherwise untapped until we awaken spiritually. So part of this came out because I've been, what I'm recommending people who are with me do. I've been looking into the abyss of climate change and what is still out there that is defining and clarifying the nature of this predicament in all its ramifications. And I'm meeting in the process the collective ignorance and collective resistance and the collective unwitting error that has got us to where we are. And in the process, I'm noticing that people who write these books are using words that I'm using. They're using phrasing, and they're pointing to things in the way I phrase and point to things. And in that moment, it just came to me that, oh my God, we are one mind. That the actual words or the phrasings that are coming out of my mouth are not mine. They're ours. And there are millions of voices. Even those of us who haven't perhaps seen or heard those words or phrasing, we recognize their truth when we hear them. So it's pointing to a power that's inherent in all of us, that we are both influenced by and influence a collective mind. a collective quality of consciousness that articulates itself in this era primarily through mind, but of course it influences every other aspect of our vital and physical life as it defines how things work. So all we do together, all I am doing is speaking to what you are already knowing, because we're all one knower. There is only one source of knowing. There's only one quality of consciousness which animates our ability to know, to think, to discover, to explore, to recognize, to be able to reveal the nature of existence in ourselves and to make that real for ourselves. So this is pointing to two aspects of this conversation associated with spiritual power. The first, and perhaps most important, is the capacity of our awareness. Now, what is this capacity? Well, it's a quality of being able to know. So I came up with a scale, 1 to 5. Our awareness is proportional to what we attend to or what we're habituated to attend to. So the first is ourself. If our capacity is oriented primarily about ourself, then everything that happens in life and everything we do in the spiritual path is going to be about us, our benefit, our diminishment, our enhancement. So that's first capacity, the individual. The second is how aware we are of others as well as ourselves. Our relationship with family members, our fellow workers, this intimacy of the familial structures, the intimate relations, the friends. And within that sphere, that's like the second level where the awareness expands outside of just self-interest, and it becomes what happens to others interests us. Certain others, limited others, is important to us. What happens for them, we feel as if it happened for us. So that's the second capacity of awareness. It's a bit larger than the first. The third capacity is interest and concern for the community, the place you live, the neighborhood, the fellow workers, people who you get exposed to. In this level, then there's this quality we would definitely call an empathy, because we're not as intimate, or are we individually as affected by this larger sphere of awareness. But we can feel a compassion and empathetic connection to some extent. That's a third capacity. The vessel of our awareness is larger. Our sphere of where we take things personally or get involved is larger. There's a lot of community or neighborhood organizations because people have this pull. This includes church groups, other kinds of groups where we get involved and get invested in. So that's the third capacity. The fourth capacity is larger. It can include your state or it can include your country. It is this larger capacity. By the way, all these others that I'm speaking of, the individual, the intimate relations, the community, and a larger arena of interest or awareness, these are all concurrent. Where one who has just the first, they have no interest in all the others. Those who have the second have a little more interest in just the first, and so on and so forth. So we carry all of these. So you can still be engaged in your neighborhood, invested in your family, and with your own individuality when we're speaking about being concerned at the level of the nation. And that's the fourth level. That's a capacity of awareness to go beyond the self. Now, the problem with as soon as you get beyond yourself, then you start taking on empathetic connections and the negative as well as the positive that comes with that greater capacity. So by the time you're getting to the place of a larger, let's say, political concern or economic concern, educational concern, perhaps it's sexual identity concern, there is all these others that are both personal and somewhat more in the collective. And then for now, the next highest capacity, the fifth level, is awareness for the world. Okay, that's the capacity. Depending on how developed we are in those capacities, determines our ability to receive and manifest spiritual power, spiritual force. So let's talk about this. And what I'm going to do is take quotes from, read quotes from what Sri Aurobindo wrote. And those of you who may not know Sri Aurobindo, he was a fully realized master in India right down at the turn of the century, 19th into the 20th century. And he had a brilliant intellectual understanding of what was happening to him spiritually. And in the process of the course of his own spiritual development, he began to understand in a very westernized scientific way the nature of the forces and experiences, the qualities of awareness that were coming to him, and spent much of his life pulling away from the world and focusing on that development, and then creating different treatises, books, teachings that describe these and speak of how they're developed and how the dangers of them, and also the capacities that they can bring and the ways they can be used. And ultimately, he is the basis of the work I am doing, my teacher is doing, that he and the mother of Pondicherry, his partner, discovered that it's possible to tap into a force of a very high frequency that when it comes into the physical body can make transformational change. That means change outside of the boundary of what nature would have normally allowed. These are intervention energy, a force of power that it can affect the very fabric of the physical, vital, and mental structures that we as embodied human beings take for granted as reality. So here he's sharing something of this conversation about spiritual force. All the world, according to science, is nothing but a play of energy. Material energy, it used to be called, but now there is serious doubt about whether matter, scientifically speaking, exists except as a phenomenon of energy. Of course, he wrote this back in 1918, so we definitely now know that there is nothing in the material domain that isn't essentially energy bound up in different structures.
Interesting. That was the year of the pandemic. The Spanish influenza.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah.
A wake-up call. In the world, as so far as human beings are concerned, we are aware of only mind energy, life energy, energy and matter, the physical energy. But it is supposed that there is a spiritual energy or force also behind them from which all these originate. All things in either case are the result of this spiritual force. There is no action without force or energy doing the action and bringing about its consequence. So he's really describing what it is that lives us. That spiritual power is actually behind the physicality of our body to live, to act, to speak, and all the rest of the things that we do. And that this spiritual power is also the fundamental structure of our own ability to know and experience. And it is actually ours, although we're each a piece of it. We each are expression of this huge, unspeakable spiritual force, which manifests itself in mind, life, and body. So spiritual force, spiritual power, and this is the experience of many of you, certainly it's my experience, has its own concreteness. That means it has its own tangible reality. It may be subjective, but in fact, you can know it, but you're not sure perhaps how it impacts others, how it influences others. That we may feel a spiritual energy, bliss, or current, but you may not discover or understand or recognize how your ability to feel this current can affect the world around you, depending upon your capacities. but is invisible, not like a blow given or the rush of a motor car knocking someone down, which the physical senses can at once perceive. But how does the mere physical mind know that spiritual power is in play? How can it know that the reals were that of a yogic force and not of something else? Now, this particular question, did the cause come from spiritual force, or did it come from something physical or vital or mental? Is it psychological or a physical symptom and not a spiritual symptom? Or is it a spiritual symptom which also has mental, psychological, and physical symptoms? This is actually a question that I've constantly been engaged in. How much is what goes on with our physical body, our chronic fatigue syndrome, our lupus, our other rashes and ailments that come from no outside source? How do we know if that's not just physical? Well, part of it is why I send everyone to see a doctor if they have symptoms that are disturbing or affecting their lives. But they only do that to eliminate that as the only possibility. And if what we're speaking of, especially if you're an awakened spiritual soul, then you can bet that any mental, psychological, emotional, or physical symptoms have something to do with the spiritual force coming into your system. And it has also something to do with your capacity. If you're too self-involved or too vested in your family or intimate others, or too tied into your identity as a woman or a man or a political position, that these things can contract or limit or create blockages in the ability of this force to be able to move cleanly and freely in our system. That's creating symptoms through the blockage, through the resistance, through the limitation of the capacity of our awareness. So the capacity is always a capacity of what we can be aware of. Some of us are more contracted. Trauma makes the consciousness contracted. It locks us into me. It locks into my trauma. It locks into the pain. It locks us into the habit of that structure. And even trauma can be relieved if we have other intimate others who can be with us with our trauma. So it goes to show that when we expand our capacity out of our own self-involvement, we actually can have a greater capacity to be with that trauma. And so on and so forth. When we can recognize that our trauma is not just ours, there's others who have the same trauma, and inform ourselves about that or connect to other groups that are working with that, then we have our capacity to be with our trauma expands outside of its small conditioning. So how do you know? How do you know if the symptoms that you're experiencing or the things that are arising are due to spiritual force? It's one of two things. Either we must go inside our own consciousness to become aware of the inner quality of ourselves and the forces that are at work in us. They become aware of the inner things, to believe in the experience of the invisible and the supra-physical. And then by experience, by practice, by opening up new capacity, we become conscious of these forces and can see and follow and use their workings, just as a scientist uses unseen forces of nature. So this is the science of yoga. Yoga, all the practices of yoga, both physical yoga, the pranayama, the training of the Raja Yoga, the other traditions that allow us to become aware of the energies in our body, the Kundalini Yoga, the Kundalini Shakti, those traditions that teach us actually how to awaken and to tame and direct spiritual energy. All of this is possible for one who's awakened to the inner dimension of their own being. All of you have awakened to the inner dimension of your own being already. you already have the capacity to be able to tap into this force and learn to bring it in, strengthen it, get greater clarity about its nature. And this comes through a process of training, literally conscious training of your system to come out of its habitual way of interpreting and defining reality, to begin to see the reality of the spiritual power that's already there in you. In the process, discovering what in you is still resisting or blocking its movement, what in the habitual structure that you bring with the different capacities that you've developed through, or not. To areas where in one area you're connected to the world, but in another area at an individual level, you've not been embodied enough to meet the part of your individuality that's scared to death of your own spiritual awakening. Scared to death of losing its identity. So this discrepancy between our capacities in any of these dimensions very much can shape our ability to move into alignment and to use this spiritual force both in our own self-healing, but also to empower and strengthen others who may come to us or who we may be in relationship with, in their own ability to find that spiritual power within themselves, or to expand their capacity, which would be expanding their willingness to open up and see that which they cannot yet know, but is actually already happening, as it is for all of us in this age. So this attuning to this process of spiritual power is also paying attention to what's already happening, and not see it as an emotional or a mental or a physical problem or issue in any of the other dimensions of psychology or therapy or healing arts, but rather a movement or the lack of movement of the spiritual power in our own system. And then also to become aware of how we impact others, being instruments and channels of this power, which we may not be conscious of. We may have had this for some time and we were hiding from it. Perhaps people were drawn to us and we kept pushing them away. We kept hiding that capacity. We didn't want others to see it because we didn't know how to be with it yet ourselves. We didn't know our reason why this had come. We're misinterpreting what it is we are. By the way, we're doing that all the time. You could say that's the fundamental error of our human embodiment, is we're misinterpreting what's happening all the time. And whatever conclusions you're making or habitual ways of defining what's happening is probably part of the thing that's keeping you from knowing that. So one must have faith and watch and open oneself. And then you will begin to see how things happen. You will notice when the force has come in. There, soon after, there will be a result. You will feel the result. Perhaps your body just relaxes. Or perhaps there's a pain in your shoulder or in your gut, or an energy contraction in some part of your body. There's the result. There's evidence. And even if you weren't aware of the spiritual force when it came in, the symptom of the structures in you will make you aware that it has come in. It's learning to be able to recontextualize what it is you take for granted to be a mental or emotional or physical result or consequence. It needs to be dismantled, opened up, recontextualized, so you can begin to see that something else has been going on all along that you haven't been paying attention to or been able to define and recognize. When we begin to become conscious of this spiritual power in us, we begin to become useful. We begin to gain the ability to direct it, both internal within ourselves and also to others, to our intimate others in all the five capacities. Those that we're connected to intimately, those we're in relationship with, those who are part of our community, those who are part of our identity, our understanding of ourselves as a man or a woman, or a cultural orientation, or any of those. We begin to tap into understanding our relationship with those in receiving those influences, but also in impacting those influences. We see how things happen. We will notice that when the force was called in, there began a time, after a time, a result. Then through repetitions and more repetitions, more clear and tangible results with increasing frequency, increasing consistency of results, and a feeling of awareness of the force at work becomes part of our daily, regular, normal lived life. So we're teaching ourselves a new set of skills, a new ways of defining what is reality and what is our relationship with reality when we start attending to what it is that's already coming. Now, some people on the spiritual path, truly awakened, do not feel spiritual force. They are aware. There is a sense of awareness or presence. Now, it is my experience that why this is so is that there's something in other parts of the capacities that are preventing that presence, that awareness, from becoming an experience. That means it needs to come and be embodied. When it begins to come and embody, then the experiences already start happening, but of course they're probably unwanted experiences initially. Because what locks us up into more limited capacities and what maybe our awareness is capable of is the parts of our human evolution that are still undeveloped, still childish or immature. So it does mean that when we start taking our presence and our awareness and we start paying attention to what's going on in our body, we begin to open up psychological and vital, emotional, mental structures that we begin to become aware that we've been trying to bypass or ignore or transcend and not have to deal with all our lives, keeping us stuck in a smaller condition of capacity than what our awareness is capable of. And this discrepancy in our capacity is what determines how accessible is the spiritual power, how well we can recognize its workings, and how we can use that to serve the world in whatever way is immediately available to us or that we can be in relationship with. For example, someone who is at the second capacity, their spiritual force will be, the inclination will be to use it to heal. It'll be use it to give explanations or understandings. It'll bring the collective mind wisdom and be able to channel it into a way that a person can understand how their astrology is changing or how their different ways of divining the nature of people's conditions, be it psychological or through the occult arts or any of those. So, but then if we step out of that limited capacity and step out of just healing those who come to us, and then of course there's many people who are at that stage of capacity, we begin to see that this force can have greater influence, can have actually a transformative effect when we begin to open up with those possibilities. But I will say that even at the second level, healers who are working in other people's bodies, they get information about who they're working with through a response that occurs as their force goes to the body of that person, feels the particular vibrations and frequencies of the consciousness that's locked up and where it is, and by doing so, being able to receive back the impression of the structure that's in place and begin to activate a healing, tangible healing impact. So even at the second stage, one can begin to make your body a more capable vehicle of directing and receiving spiritual power through its applications. So we use this in our work too. All of this is an unfolding that comes that when you begin to become aware of the current of the spiritual force working in your system, and you gather in groups of others where one person is holding the space and the others are sharing into that space, that we begin to feel what's going on in the other person as if it's ours. We can become aware of the energy experience that they're having, and in the process, just through our capacity and whatever role we're playing, we can start bringing in through our system a spiritual power that does its automatic healing. Because spiritual power will always be to remind the cells, to remind the biochemistry, to remind the bioelectrical energy of the body of its origin. It'll move into connection with the oneness that actually is going on all the time, but due to the limited capacity, it's been habituated into contractions and restrictions, diversions and blockage. So this empowers people over time to become more and more aware of how the force works in them, because it makes the force more accessible, and how it works in others through them. If you begin to become aware of the force, it may be just a trickle at first. That is enough to justify the faith in a future downpour. You admit that you once or twice felt a force coming down or coming up or in your body. It proves that the force was and is there and at work, and is only your sweating Herculean labor which prevents you from feeling it. This is the nature of the ego. And it's this Herculean labor of the ego to stay as it is that's keeping us from being able to open up to this current of existence that's living us, and in fact, all things, all of existence. It is also the trickle, the little glimpse, the moment that gives evidence of a future downpour, the possibility of it expanding. So it has always been my teaching, it was my intuitive experience that when the first awakening started coming, the spiritual forces started coming in, I recognized that my job was to attend to that and nothing else. I made that the most important thing. There was something in me, of course, that wanted that because of the tangible bliss and awareness and peace and depth and relaxation and fullness it brought with it. But it was also this willingness not to let the old personality take over, because part of what would happen is after a point I would get restless. But I knew that I needed to stay with it until it was finished. And I believe that commitment to do that is what had me change my life so that I could give it its full attention. By the way, this is exactly what Sri Aurobindo did. He withdrew from his outer activity as a political terrorist. He was in prison for that. And spent his entire life attending to the process that was naturally occurring. And in the process became more informed and aware of this spiritual power, how it works in him, and then began to notice how it worked in others. And his whole work was about empowering others to do that, so that together, us human beings could become channels for this force, for the collective consciousness. So this is what we're doing. This is the nature of this work. Every level of this work goes through and starts working on each of the capacities from bottom up or top down. And that as these capacities are developed, the force will come in from below or from above or both, each responding to the other. The work we do in the World Peace Meditation. What are we doing in the World Peace Meditation? The collective group that's doing a World Peace Meditation is mobilizing its energy to bring in a spiritual power for the world. And anybody who consistently runs or participates in a World Peace Meditation begins to have a tangible experience of that spiritual force, or a tangible experience of the limitations of our capacities to receive and hold these spiritual forces. But especially the person who holds the group, because it's an acceleration of the process of what all of us carry as a capacity to be a channel and instrument for this great spiritual intervening transformative force of truth consciousness, this incarnation force that's coming into the world now. It has tangible results. It's affecting in expanding concentric rings, and in every location it's occurring, the vibrational field, which is spiritual power, of the rest of humanity. And it's causing a waking up, an enlivening, a truing of consciousness that is creating opportunities for the physical world to come back and teach man the lessons, the consequences of the collective error us human beings have been perpetuating, and to meet them in such a way that really the opportunity of our embodiment becomes expanded, and things that were never possible before now can become possible. Okay. I just want to stay there a little bit, because this is really what we're working with. That's what you're working with. This is what you're learning to understand. This is what you're learning to train yourself to collaborate with, and to begin to recognize this unique, extraordinary capacity that us human beings carry to reconcile the difference between spirit and matter. We're there. We're the ones that can bring spirit into matter, and in the process lift matter up more towards spirit. Okay, so there you have it. That's the work we do. This is what we're doing. Each of you I know have varying degrees of awareness and experience with everything I'm saying. And I am listening to the groups, and the other day I listened to a group that was so perfect in the expression of what I had been hoping to have manifest in these groups that I was just utterly fulfilled. So I know it is possible. It is possible for any of you who participate and join in this work to begin to see for yourselves in your own direct experience the reality, the concreteness of the spiritual power, and the role you have to play in aligning and collaborating with it. Okay. All right. So now we're going to turn it over to all of you.
So we have about 20 minutes.
Okay. 20 minutes. This is Tuesday. You don't get a lot of time. This is a sampling. So who would like to come first? You just put your hand up and you'll be put in the list, and we'll see how many of you we can get to. But this is enough. You don't need to bring anything more up, but if you do, you'll share and enrich in what it is for everyone, each one of you. I assure you.
Up first, we have Yosine.
All right.
Yosine.
Yay.
She's in transit.
Yeah, I think I'm there, or not.
Namaste.
Namaste. I just had a quick question, because I shared with you in the last satsang that I was feeling really grounded, centered, my true self. And of course, now I started attracting all kinds of people that are coming up to me. And I'm just curious what to do with it, because it felt really good to keep it small. But now it's, yeah, people are just asking for directions in the biggest sense of the word. So I'm not sure if I should attend to that or.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now is the time. You can start simply holding silent sittings. and then have a discussion before and after. You can.
Yeah, the thing is, my schedule is full.
All right.
So
Well, then
that's the yeah.
it's going to be in each moment, and there's nothing for you to do right now except to be there in each moment, receiving what their being is asking for, because when you receive it, it comes from you to them. So even though it may be just a few words, like, I get it, hey, let's get back to work. Because what you're carrying is people are thirsty for. The collective consciousness is thirsty for what you're becoming. You may not know it because you're used to structures of protection and keeping yourself involved in other things. So you may not recognize how you're influencing the world around you. So
I can feel it. I can feel just people coming to me. So it's, and it's good that we've got social distancing. So there's a little bit of space to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You have to have a little distance. You have to hide behind it. Something is triggering the whole thing. Okay, well, then, nothing more than that. Nothing other than you being able to be with the person. The part of you that thinks she needs to do is the error that's gotten you into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that's not there anymore. I'm even enjoying it. There's no fear of losing energy. It's just that I was very comfortable with keeping it small, and now it just feels like it's happening despite me and through me, and it feels like I'm just the instrument now, and I don't have to do anything with it. But I just wanted to check if I could just let this happen, or that I should stay away from it.
Let me share with you, I have a person who was with me years ago who is a medical doctor and very, very busy person. And there was a chapel where she worked, and she had a time in the day that she invite people to sit for a half an hour to 45 minutes in the chapel. And people would come off their shift and would take their breaks or whatever, and they would join her. And she had that occurring where she had 25, the chapel was no longer big enough. So she was a full tilt, full boogie, the highest productive doctor in the entire Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area region. She was awarded like 3 years in a row, especially work with Hispanics. And she had this tremendous transmission, and people that was the means. They just sat quiet in the chapel. So you might want to consider that if there's a space, like an area like that, a chapel or a quiet room where people could gather, and whoever could periodically in the course of a day as a break during a normal break time that may occur, and see what happens.
Yeah, there's still a part that feels it's premature, and who am I to do that? And
that's not necessarily true. What I would say is intend to create some space for yourself to create space for them. So you might want to look at your schedule and see where you've over obligated yourself. See where you could step back, where you weren't the only one who could do it. The part of you that's addicted to being needed. So and then in that space, create space for those who may be, it could be after work, it could be before work, it could be days off, whatever. It's all going to be remote. So location is less critical. All right.
Thank you.
There you have it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Jesse.
We'll see what happens. Thank you.
So up next, we have Laura.
Laura, namaste. We're not here. Am I hearing her? We have sound. Are you on mute? Okay, you're on mute.
Speaking.
Hi.
Oh, there we go.
She hasn't spoken.
Yeah. Hi. I mostly just really wanted to connect. To connect. I'm new here.
Is this the first time you've come on?
No.
The second.
Second. Okay.
Yeah. I was in the 9-day retreat.
Yeah. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Great. It was great. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. So there is something longing for what's coming. Yeah, I can see the devotion. And that's the spiritual force. That's the truth of you. as a Satchitananda. So that's what you tend to. That's what you can be long for and be fulfilled when it comes. You found the track. You found your own track to help nourish it, that capacity in you. That's empowering you to know the truth of what you are in ways that perhaps haven't been available to you before. Namaste.
That's really sweet.
Up next, we have Janet.
Hey.
There she is.
Hello,
Hi.
Janet. Namaste.
Hello, namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Okay. I really resonated with what you were talking about, how the body can kind of contract or expand and get in the way of the spiritual power.
Yeah.
And I have these kriyas that go on when I meditate, and it's all right here.
Ah,
And, you know, for as long as I've been sitting with you, they've been there. Sometimes they'll go away and I'll kind of be able to sink in more. But a lot of times it's just so frenetic that, you know, I stay up in my head more. So to me, that's like, what is it? Third, whatever, throat chakra or something.
absolutely.
But I'm just wondering what it's about and what I can
Remember, we
do.
all carry different capacities. So your awareness has a larger capacity than your throat chakra. That means it's in the first capacity. It's the part where the throat chakra is where it's not safe to express our power. And that could be in the childhood where we have to repress our anger or reaction or something we want to say that we don't say because we're afraid it'll create a reaction in the outer world. So a lot of people have this blockage. But what you can do with that, because you've been having, what it is, it's the nadis, the spiritual power trying to clear through those channels, just so they can complete themselves. And this force is moving anyway, but the contraction is having these sputterings that's causing your kriyas. So my suggestion is you have two things. One, hold the space, experience the contraction, feel it. While you're attending to the contraction, be aware of the whole rest of your body. Because this will definitely tied to the third chakra and to the diaphragm. At the same time you're attending to this, be aware of where the contraction or the energy is in other locations of your body. So that's one. By attending to both simultaneously, you'll start opening up the other structures that are keeping this in place, that are more in your body. The second is through your imagination, imagine the force that's coming in, going down through your fifth chakra into your fourth, into your third, into your second and first. Just imagine it, even if you don't feel it at first. And then in that imagining, you're kind of creating channels for this force to move more readily. Now, I'm assuming the force is coming from above. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll try to kind of broaden it or open it up there and try to just get a sense of the energy expanding here to sort of let it through.
That's exactly what to do. And it's this repetition where we start dismantling that Herculean effort of our ego not to change. So, you know, it is your power. It is, and it helps with the fifth chakra to make loud noises as a means of releasing the blockage of the excess energy that occurs. You can do it into a towel if you're here in an apartment. I know you live in the Bay Area, so you can make a lot of noise into a towel and they'll hardly notice it. So the principle is then you open up that physical expression of the blockage that is probably still there, where you strangle yourself unwittingly and not speak your truth. And that hurts your heart and it blocks up your gut and it creates other problems. So stop doing that.
No problem.
Good. Takes instructions well. All right. Now, very good.
Thank you.
So good to see you.
Damn it.
Patricia is up next.
All right.
Oh,
Patricia.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. How are you feeling these days?
Well, I was just going to report on that actually, which is it really has taken a very long time.
Mhm.
I still got the pneumonia and breathlessness, and but apparently that's what one ought to expect. It's funny that because it's brought up all sorts of things in the body, and that's really what I'm wondering about, because it seems that first of all it started here, then it went down to the throat, then it went down to the lungs, then not so long ago it went down to the gut. I mean, with serious kind of implications. It wasn't funny, and
Especially if it gets down to that first chakra.
well, it's gone down to the first chakra, which I'm not going to talk about at the moment.
It's actually,
But it's not. I tell you, it's not funny.
I didn't want to keep it hidden. The bottom line of this is always a comparable physical process that occurs.
Yes.
The force comes in and does its transformative work. And it's forcing you to meet and digest the pieces of the elephant that is limiting your capacity. And therefore, at some point, it will be digested and it will come out and be discharged.
Yes, well, it is.
A physical
It's-
diarrhea or a feeling like you have to
Yeah.
have a bowel movement. So these are all, that's good signs. It
Yeah.
just means it's got a lot of content. You've lived up here a lot.
I have.
Your higher chakra, your upper chakras are open, but now this lower territory, this
Oh,
is
God.
where ones and twos are in terms of your capacities, are being cleared.
Well, that's right. And then on top of that, there's this panic, which I'm sure is the Herculean panic, which comes up as soon as as soon as anything strange is noticed in the body, then there's panic. And apart from that, I've been talking to my neighbors, and about 3 of them have serious kind of mental panics as well. So actually what did cross my mind was whether I'm picking up on the general fear, which is in the air as well.
And it could be cultural. I mean, the stiff upper lip of the British, is really a control issue, rather than therefore it swallows, stuffs content. So when change comes, that psychological structure of losing control becomes this very strong fear, resistance, panic, like on the verge of losing control. So
Yeah.
use panic as a doorway.
Yes. Okay.
It's like terror. Use it as a doorway. See
Yes.
if you can meet the panic in your body, where it's located.
Yeah.
Find its locations. And when you do, pay attention to the rest of your body at the same time to see if the repercussions of that structure could be in your diaphragm, could be in your gut. While we talk, it seems to be in your upper gut. And then, of course, it goes to the heart, and then it goes to the throat. So feel all of that, be aware of the panic, and then that's all. Then you can just imagine that panic moving. It can move up or down or out, because
Yeah.
that's what the problem is. It's trying to hold something it can't hold.
Yeah.
It's a limited capacity that thinks it should be that way. So when you relax it, release it one way or another, then it has room to move. Then it's no longer panic. It's a bodily reaction. It could be a resistance, or it could be a tightness or a fire. You let it be those things and experience that as the energy. In your consciousness, Patricia, I think it will move very quickly. When you recognize that the story that you may have about panic which is associated with avoiding experiencing panic, is feeding the resistance that's keeping the panic in place.
Yes.
So it's the mind that thinks it needs to be different than, that's saying it should be different than what it's feeling.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. There's a few tricks in your own scientific process, which I'm sure the coronavirus decided that you had to have a long, persistent case because of the Herculean effort of your ego to keep things in
Yeah.
control.
Yeah, well, it's had a test.
Yep. Right, right. All right, but be sure you can't fail this one. It's just a matter of shortening the amount of time you need to go through it.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
Mike.
So we have Shannon up next.
Oh, do you know Shannon? Shannon.
Ah,
Yes.
welcome. Welcome. Is this your first time?
I've seen you speak in Saratoga and have been watching some of your online teachings. I was introduced by my friend Bridget, who's on today.
Oh, Bridget.
Yes.
So,
I
okay.
see Bridget.
Yeah.
Hi,
I see it.
Bridget.
So happy that you're on, I can tell.
So I'm on the journey with her.
Okay.
Very
good.
cool.
Yeah. So my question is, last year I started getting regular migraines about monthly, which is unusual for me. And then this morning I was working out doing yoga and all of a sudden felt very hot and flush and I had a full body rash come on. And I've never experienced this before. So I stopped working out, took some Benadryl, and then it subsided. So it's just got me thinking, hearing you talk today, what kind of blockage might be going on or how I can dive into that.
Well, the fire is always an indication that the spiritual power is at work and it's creating the body, the physical body, the biochemistry, and the bioelectrical forces in your body to increase. So it can create autoimmune reactions like rashes. It definitely creates heat, and it therefore can further create other structures within your body that could then become psychological, like fear or wanting to fix it. But all of these would be very common, very typical symptoms of someone where the spiritual power is beginning to activate in their system. That's what I suspect this is. What to do with that is to allow it, to know that it is actually a good thing, that you're going to have to expand your capacity to be with. That's the characteristic of a capacity. It's the capacity to be with the process, not try to fix it, not to try to run away, but to be with it. But to be with it in the way that I teach is to be conscious of it in your body. To meet the area where the heat is the greatest or where the contraction is showing up, and to notice the story of the fear. This could be coronavirus, this could be this could be that. You know, am I tasting or smelling right now? You know, so you don't want to go down that avenue. You want to just allow it to happen. I know because of your association with Bridget, I suspect it's a spiritual force being transmitted to you, and your system is beginning to wake up. And if you just look at a fire, how it starts with small little flames, and then it begins to grow brighter and brighter and more intense. Well, that's your future.
And I do feel I'm on my spiritual path, coming out more into the world with my mission. I'm feeling that bubbling up a lot right now too.
Okay, that bubbling up is also a sign of the spiritual force. It's this aligning of our being saying, yay, 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 it's finally happening. So it is that part that has this work that allows the ego to collaborate with this greater truth of you coming into your embodiment. So it's perfect.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Good to see you.
You
Now I'll remember
too.
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So up next we have Jamel.
Okay, this is going to be the last person.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
Hi.
Jamel,
Hey, from
Welcome.
Peru.
right.
Yeah, from Peru. Thanks for all the program. It's been really helpful, I think, for everyone in this time. And send my love to all the people watching today. have been experiencing a lot of movement in my body, like a lot of energy, yeah, I'm used to it now. But since a while, all my left part, it's kind of, this part is hurting my here, and it's my neck. It's like sometimes really strong, really like tense, and I think it's linked to my lower back, to the end of the colon. And yeah, I don't know what to
Okay. So
do.
I don't know your full history, Jamel, but typically that's a survival structure.
Okay.
That comes up where you're carrying the need to come into existence for fear of survival, for the necessity. So it can be something you developed as a psychological adaptation, coming into the world as an independent man, trying to be a certain way, letting go your more sensitive and more vulnerable sides to be strong and to be able to tolerate it. But it could also come out of your circumstances of your childhood and your cultural tradition.
My life
Go ahead.
traumatic.
Yes, so it's somatic. They're definitely somatic, but I suspect that's the case. It's not on people who've come from less developed parts of the world, or people who are still in that more primitive survival structure, carry, if not in their lives, through their parents and grandparents, something of a stress that's unique, that's not as common in people who are in the more developed countries, where for generations they've lived in a not having to be in that level of primitive fear or survival. So this is trying to move, is trying to work. So it's very contracted. So a one capacity, because it's about survival. Survival is the smallest capacity. So it's the channels associated with that are blocked proportional for how long you've been living that way. It can be also due to rajas. Rajas creates a contraction as we try to make something happen, where there's an ambition or a willfulness to make something happen, especially in the head, where all our intellectual training comes, where all our conditioning to be capable in a certain way in the world, where we focus our consciousness to be good at, to pass the grades, to get to the schools, to work with the clients, whatever that may be. So that also is why that might be happening. It's the whole kind of trying to figure something out, trying to strategize and control. Now, how's that resonate with you?
I was like this, like I wanted to make it happen in my spiritual path for sure. Now I really calmed down. Since I came back from India, it's shifted. I had some attacks still from other plants. I'm used to it also now. I was thinking it was connected, like anyway, but how it's resonating, I don't know.
Well, I believe it's up to be healed. I believe it's occurring now to be experienced and met. And the instructions I gave to the other people, where you become aware of what's happening in that part of your body while you're paying attention. It's when you said it came from very low, from the base of the torso.
Yeah, the spine and down the spine. It's linked also to the here and to the And it's
very common. It's where we plow our way through life. It's where, out of the necessity, either self-imposed or inherited pattern of pushing our way into existence, it could be desire-based or fear-based or both, in terms of the motive behind it, because ego is seeking to protect itself and to enhance itself. So it's just the nature of your system. Feel the energy, notice the sources of it as an energetic event in your body. It is indication you're in the process of transformation and you're tending to it in the correct way. And that there's two things you can do. One, meet it in that presence, allowing for it to be without a label, no matter how uncomfortable it is, but without getting vested in it, just feeling it. And then noticing the rest of your body. And the other thing is to open a channel for it to move. Now, that can be done by directing the pain or the structure up and out, or down and below, or expanding it in your imagination. Any one of those directions can help open channels for the locked up structures to start relaxing, because that's what you want them to do. You want them to start relaxing. It's contracted. They don't know they're contracted. They think they're protecting or doing the right thing. It's like the little child in you thinking this is what you're supposed to do. So when you actually become aware of it as an experience in your body, and you imagining it opening, that can also move and clear the channels. Yes. Okay. All right. Good. This has a consequence in many parts of your life. How your body assimilated poisons. It didn't assimilate poisons. It has to do with any remnant of self-abuse that may have occurred, overstraining yourself. Any number of things can be bits and pieces. Where are you now?
In Switzerland.
You're in Switzerland. Okay. All right. So you're out of Tiru. All right. Well, there's more we could talk about, but we don't have any more time. So good. Thank you. Namaste.
Take care, and good to see you again.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So our next Global Satsang is on Saturday, and Satri, the title of that is?
Is it this Saturday?
Yes, it's this
Oh.
Saturday.
Okay, you'll love this. Sex and the Spiritual Path. So it'll be an unfolding of the, yeah, we're going to have hundreds, I know.
It's free, so, you know, tell your friend.
Unbounded. You don't even have to pay for it. All right, so I hope to have a good time, but it's also going to reveal something about how that has shaped our reality and our capacities for being on the spiritual path. Because if you look at the 5 capacities, then you can kind of get that our sexuality has something to do with the second capacity, right? So this is an uncovering of the natures of how sex has played a role in shaping our reality, and how what can happen with that entire part of ourselves when we awaken to the subtle plane energies, and how they can impact us, and then learning how to be in the right relationship with those forces within ourselves. So that's the exploration. I actually don't know exactly how this is going to go. I'm not any expert other than on the energetic. I'm just like the rest of you in terms of what I learned in the course of my life about sexuality. But it's going to be an exploration, which will mean that it'll be quite fresh.
And we'll have 2 hours, so there'll be more time to ask questions.
Yeah, and we'll be able to explore this whole thing. We will have another one about relationship in the spiritual path. That'll be somewhat in a different focus than this one, but they will be related, of course.
Okay.
All right. So thank you all for joining us. What we're going to do now is have a silent sitting for a few minutes, and then we will be done for our satsang. Yeah, just a couple of minutes. Okay, let us begin. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri. All glory to Supreme. May truth manifest. Namaste.
Hey, Jason.